Hello, everyone. My name is Warren Black. I'm with All Classical Portland. I hang around in the morning. It's kind of nice to be out at night, even though it's a little rough to come inside after a beautiful day like this. But thank you all for coming for our pre-conversation chat. Two great guests tonight. First, our conductor for this evening, Jun Märkl. He is the permanent, official guest conductor here for the Oregon Symphony, as well as, basically, if you can think of a big city in the world with an orchestra, he's probably conducted there. I don't know, have you conducted on Antarctica yet? Because I think you covered every continent, maybe but Antarctica. Right?
I think they still have to found an orchestra there.
Know.
But maybe there will be a nice penguin orchestra there.
Oh, yes.
Because they always already have the tails.
Well done. And also we have violinist Greg Ewer, who's how long have you been with the Oregon Symphony?
This is, I think, year 20 for me.
Wow, okay, yeah. Nice. And Greg has played also, I mean, you founded 45th Parallel, which is one of our great chamber music ensembles in town. I know you played with Portland Baroque Orchestra. He can play anywhere, he can do anything. So we're going to talk about this interesting program that we have tonight. We start with the Dvořák. Can you tell us, Jun, just a little bit about setting this up? This is his one and only violin concerto. So I know it was originally intended for Joseph Joachim, but there were problems with it. I'm wondering how. So if these violin concertos are mountains, where does this one range? Is it with, like, Everest and all of that?
Yeah, I mean, violin concertos was always a very important point for a composer to prove that he really is a great composer. And kind of the margin was Beethoven violin concerto, which is, the only one, yes? So he didn't need to write another one to prove, but that, for all the Romantic era after Beethoven, that was a problem. Like the Ninth Symphony or these kind of state-of-the-art works, yes? So what do? How do you write anything else which could top that? And you can't. You have to look for a different style. And on the other hand, there were these great violinists. You mentioned Joseph Joachim, who was one of the really strong, important violin players at that time, who developed the instrument, who gave them ideas of new sound possibilities, and also the violin itself, the makers they developed, the strength of the sound, and so on. So the composers just had to grab that and try to find a new way how to write for the violin and how to express the new era, the Romantic era, the different sound you need for the emotions. And it starts with the Mendelssohn. So the Mendelssohn is really something very different from the Beethoven. When you imagine Beethoven, like most of the concerts in the classical time, you come on stage and the soloist has to wait, because we have the nice introduction in the orchestra to introduce the themes, the first and second theme and so on, and then the violin player would take it up and do his thing with this music. Mendelssohn is the first one who just starts right away. He's kind of presenting the theme. And from this, it developed new way of thinking. And then we have, of course, the Brahms concerto and the Dvořák concerto and many others. So the Dvořák concerto, the typical thing about it is, first of all, it's Dvořák. It's always about beautiful sound, about beautiful melodies, tunes. They are very warm sound, and it's terribly difficult. So some of the players at that time, even today, they say, I don't like it, because it's just, you have so many double stops, and really it's not that well written for the violin, so you have to work really hard to make it sound. but it's really great music. And you know, Dvořák, especially in his later works, he got this fantastic symbiosis of really high technical skills, so development of technical possibilities on the violin during the century, and then plus this beautiful sound. And it's really terribly difficult, but the way how Joshua Bell plays it is just, you forget about the difficulty. You just can enjoy the music, and that's really mastership.
That's right. We have the great Joshua Bell here tonight to perform this, and probably, yeah, we'll make it look effortless, like he often always does.
Yeah, you can see he's working hard and to make it work, and also the orchestra, for the orchestra, is also not easy. But the point is that really the music can kind of stream out, you can open your emotions, your heart, and it will reach you, it will touch you.
So what's it like working with Joshua Bell? He's been here many times. He's been here with the Oregon Symphony many times. What's it kind of like to have somebody like that just show up? Greg.
Well, it's fantastic. I mean, I don't know exactly how old Josh Bell is, but I know I think he's a few years older than me. And when I was growing up in Houston, I remember vividly being on the first row of Jones Hall when the concerto you mentioned, the Mendelssohn concerto. It was my introduction to him. I had never even heard a recording at that point. And the sound that he made was absolutely just rapturous. And he had a really funky-looking fiddle too. There was a violin made by Antonio Stradivari that didn't have the traditional corners. They were completely smoothed out, just almost like like a snake. And I just thought, wow, this guy is breaking all kinds of molds, and I want to be like him when I grow up. It's a lot of fun, and of course he's the consummate, fiddler's fiddler. He can play anything and make it look easy, and also very expressive. The opening of the second movement is one of the most beautiful melodies, I think, in the violin concerto repertoire. It just absolutely grabs hold of you and doesn't let go.
So what is it like? He's also a conductor now with the Academy of St. Martin in the Fields. So what's it like working with him?
He is a very special artist, I would say. In our market, in our industry, things have to go very fast. So the soloist arrives and immediately we have to get to a result. So that leads many artists and they come up with the most easy and smooth solution. And Joshua Bell is different. He goes for the music, he digs into that, and sometimes he comes up with not so easy solutions. Yeah, so we really have to work hard to get into that, and I really love this approach because when you listen to him and to the phrasing he does, you can always feel where a phrase, a melody is going to. He's reaching out or he's taking time and so on. So what we, as a conductor, as the orchestra, what we have to do is we have to understand how he's thinking. It's not straightforward, the easy way, yes? So the easy way, of course, I exaggerate, but you put on a metronome and it works, yes? But this is not a metronome playing, and that makes it so lively. And this concerto, especially, Brahms or Dvořák, they always have this inner life phrasing for us. And so that makes it so beautiful and lively. But it takes for us a lot to get this and to join him. And once we get it, then it's a real pleasure.
So what's the rehearsal process? Is just nailing things down? I mean, assume everybody is so good. What are you going for in rehearsals for this?
Yeah, it's a stop and go. Huh? We start, no, not good, next start, and so on. And sometimes we try to really work out small details, and just also set up the general mood, or the balance is not soft enough, or we need more of this. And so it's very much in detail. And the great thing about this orchestra is they are so fast in picking up things, and they're listening so careful. So there are many things I don't have to explain. They just get it and get the sense of it. But that's really detailed work, bar by bar.
And so then the second piece on the program tonight, curious, normally there's small and large and arranged. Tonight we just have two massive, well, not massive pieces, but two really substantial pieces. The second piece is, I love this, the second piece, the Brahms piano quartet in G minor, which he wrote in 1861, and we're going to hear an orchestration of it that was composed in the late 30s by Arnold Schoenberg. And he was asked why he did this, and he had a simple three-part answer for that. He said, I like the piece, the piano quartet. It is seldom played, and three, it is always very badly played because the better the pianist, the louder he plays, and you hear nothing from the strings. I wanted once to hear everything, and this I have achieved. So I remember coming across, I feel lucky, I guess, because my first acquaintance with this as a non-musician was a recording by Emanuel Ax, Yo-Yo Ma, Isaac Stern, and Jamie Laredo. Perfect balance. I mean, Emanuel Ax is like just the consummate chamber musician. So I guess I didn't hear it where the piano was wanging away and drowning everybody else out. So
Well, it was a recording also.
Yes, it's true, right, that's true. So tell us about, I guess, I asked Greg beforehand if he'd ever played this piano quartet as a chamber player, and you had. So give us a little background on that.
Well, it's a rush to play. It's extremely virtuosic for the piano, and the strings have some very lush and very interesting things to play. It's when I program this piece, it's always, I always know it's going to be a fun concert. And it's interesting sitting in the orchestra playing a piece like this because you're used to hearing certain sounds, and all of a sudden, the percussion is doing something really unexpected. The cymbals have something, or the E-flat clarinet has something that, you just can't even believe that you just heard that because you're just so used to, that coming from a very different place with the music for piano quartet. The horns as well. I mean, they're just all over the place. And, I was thinking about a piece that I played not too long ago. It was the Irvin Stein adaptation of Mahler's Fourth Symphony, which presents very different challenges to an arranger or a composer. There you have, a big symphonic work, and you have to try to preserve all of these textures and colors, which of course is impossible, but you try, you do your best, you make, your best decisions about how to do that. I know for Mahler 4 there aren't even any horns in the small chamber version. But this is the opposite problem. You have an endless number of possibilities, an endless number of colors, and what do you do with it? Because it's piano and strings, and all of a sudden you have, incredible, instrument at your disposal, and you have a lot of, he's made a lot of interesting decisions about what instruments to give what music.
Yeah, so tell us a little about all of those colors and everything that's added to this, too.
Yes, I think this idea of instrumentating or arrangements of existing works, you just touched that. That's a very interesting thing. It goes two ways. The one way is you have a big symphony, for example, Mahler's Symphony, or the Emperor's Waltz by Johann Strauss, a big piece, and Schoenberg was one who created a very small version of that, And this was kind of thinking, yes, we bring it down that you can play it in your home and learn about the music, and kind of playing at home was a very big thing for a long time. Then there is the other way around, that many composers composed first for piano. Ravel, Debussy, the first version was always for piano, even when they intended to create an orchestral work. La Valse, for example, or even Stravinsky, Le Sacre du Printemps was written for 2 pianos and then transcribed or instrumentated. Now we have a different approach, and as you were indicating with these citations, there is a musical reason next to a financial reason, because Schoenberg needed money. But the problem is the piano. And even today, when we have these grand pianos, these big black boxes, then they just play so loud, the instrument is so strong, the strings cannot compete. There is no balance within the orchestra, in the chamber music group. So how is Schoenberg doing this? In one way, he is getting rid of the piano and placing all the different themes and melodies into the orchestra by reinforcing every line. So when you have a bass line, usually played by the cello, now it's not just one cello, you have the whole cello section, you have the whole double bass section, we have 7 of them, they make a lot of noise. Then you have the tuba and the bass trombone and 3 bassoons and a bass clarinet, and they all play the same thing. So then you have a really very sustained and very powerful bass line, which you usually don't hear. Or when you go into the other direction, sometimes Schoenberg wants to show special effects, accents, or just give a kind of a bling on top of the melody. So he goes into instruments Brahms never would have used, like Glockenspiel, like xylophone, or cymbal. Yes, cymbal he used in some of these Hungarian dances, but never in a symphony. So he, Schoenberg, adds instruments, E-flat clarinet, this kind of small, squeaky clarinet on top of, gives this top voice a very special and ringing sound, which you wouldn't have when you just play it on the violin or even on the piano. So how could I describe that? Maybe like this. You just have also to imagine there are about 70 years between the creation of the original piano quartet and then the instrumentation. So in this time, the reception of music has completely also changed, and our world has changed. So I would say Schoenberg is looking to the Brahms piece through very strong colored glasses, and the color is pink. Yeah, so just to show that the way he transforms the piece, and every note in that piece is original Brahms, yeah? So he didn't add anything, but he just wants to emphasize and characterize and give a special color to all the different lines. And that makes it very interesting, a very interesting blend, looking to music which is now, 150 years old, through a different approach. The music is still the same, but the color is different.
I also wonder how much of an inspiration do you suppose was, I guess, because one piece that this made me think of Brahms is his Handel variations, which is taking basically a piece for a wind quintet and expanding it out into all directions. Yeah.
I think this is a step further, and the orchestra we're using is really huge, and So there's one more thing. You can try to instrument something, and quite often this is a very mechanical thing. You just say, okay, this melody might be okay for an oboe. It's a range of an oboe, so first time I take the oboe, second time I take the violins. So that's the normal thing to do, yes. But Schoenberg was a quite decent viola player, so he played this piece many times. So I really can feel this is from the inside. He really understood Brahms, and then from this he created this very emotional, I would say, instrumentation. And this is for Schoenberg remarkable, because we think of Schoenberg a 12-tone system and so very intellectual, very German, Austrian-like, and so don't like to listen to it. No, this is different one, yes. And so I think he really brings out a lot of great things, the melodies, the themes out of the music by just giving us his instrumentation.
And how different, do you ever find yourself like getting confused in the middle of this, since you played it in the chamber arrangement, or is it you just follow the notes along? I don't know.
It's just completely different. There's no chance of getting confused. There's so much that we have in the chamber version that unfortunately we have to watch from afar and appreciate our colleagues doing it, getting all the fun this time. But no, it's a remarkably I don't want to say idiomatic piece as an orchestral piece, because there are awkward things to play for sure, but I always find it extremely comfortable to play for some strange reason.
Which one? The orchestra version or the chamber music version?
Well, the orchestra version. I mean, the chamber version is, that's completely, it's a natural thing. That's extremely well written. But for an adaptation like this, you might expect things to be, the fact that things are sort of cut up and passed from one section to another, you might expect that would provide some sort of awkwardness. And I've never really found it to be the case. I think, at least from my perspective, as a violinist, Schoenberg did a pretty kind job to us all in not making it ridiculously difficult.
But that's only because he's a great violin player. It's very difficult, yes. But maybe we can talk a little bit also why this the chamber music version has this problem. Because when you look at the creation process of this work, just before Brahms had written his first piano concerto. And Brahms for a long time didn't dare to write a piece, a work for orchestra. And to write a symphony was kind of absolute necessary for a composer, again, to prove that he's a great composer. So Schumann and Mendelssohn and all these after Beethoven, they did this and proved that they can do it. Brahms was hesitating. So he had written the orchestra serenades, there's the smaller pieces, and then the first piano concerto. And that was actually like his first symphony, and it fell through. Nobody liked it. This was 1859, and so this was kind of a chèque, what the French would say, so no success, yeah, the opposite. At the same time, he was already writing this piece. Yes, there was kind of same time of creation. He started 1856 with creating this, and he was just 23 years old. He loved the piano, and he got so excited about the piano. So he wrote the piano concerto, no success, but then he said, okay, I need maybe not write again for orchestra, but I create a new genre. So larger chamber music with piano. So the piano quartet was something new. And then I think he would just get overexcited and writing so many things into the piano and loved it. So the part of the piano is almost like in many parts, almost like a second piano concerto. Yeah? And that creates this or imbalance within this whole piece. And the pianist, when you perform it as a pianist, you have to take a lot of back. Just close the lid and use a smaller piano, and then the string players, they can kind of bloom, and otherwise they always have to push. And here in our version with the orchestra, then you don't have to push. It just streams and just goes. So both versions, they have their advantages and disadvantages. And I think this Schoenberg version is really fascinating because it brings out all things which Brahms could have imagined. When you go for the last movement, this is a rondo, and it's a Hungarian rondo, and you have this gypsy music in this. It's very exciting. And like this music consists of small sections, and they come and go, and then the next dance, like Hungarian dance, is a lot in this. You can also hear this typical Hungarian instrument, the cymbalon. Yes, so they play kind of, how would you say, do you have any original instrument here which kind of would reflect that?
Oh, like the cymbalom?
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, it just has kind of these strings like a piano, but you beat it with little beaters and so, and it's very virtuoso and has a special color. It's all built in this. You see very often the strings playing a lot of pizzicato stuff and over the strings and whipping them almost off. And so there's a lot of color, and it's a very joyful music, third and fourth movement. The first and second are more kind of, it's a rainy day when you start. Yes, it's very melancholic. And what was the point? Why was Schoenberg so interested in this piece? I said before, yes, he played that piece, but when you look at it, Schoenberg wanted to be in a line of development. And so we had kind of that one thing, which the opera and then Wagner and then other composers would go on. And where's the other line? And then he said, Schoenberg, I am kind of following Beethoven, Brahms, and then me. Yes, and why? Because Brahms is a real master to work with small motives. When you listen to the first movement, the motive, the main theme is do-di, do-di, just very short, 4 notes. But with this, he creates almost most of the themes, melodies in the whole movement. So he's very efficient. When he has do-di, the first interval, he uses a lot. He has this melancholic going up to di, and then have do-di, and he uses this do-di, please, ti-di, mo, ti-do. He just turns it around. Yes. And with this kind of thing working on, he can create huge structures. And Schoenberg was the one that said, this is great. I follow it and I put it into my composition technique. And that was also why he was so interested in that piece.
All right, well, you're in for a treat tonight. 2 great pieces. Thank you all again for coming. Please, a round of applause for Jun Märkl. And for Greg Ewer. I'm Warren Black. Thank you again for coming.